Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for yet more dedicated legacy action. Today we are playing Grindstoneforge, which is a deck I've played on the channel before and I have in foil and paper, and we are playing the version 2.0 of this. So we've made quite a lot of changes compared to the last one, which is why it's got up to version 2.0 here. So, what are the changes we've made? So the big one here for me is we've gone from 3 Aether Vials down to 1 Aether Vial. So 1 Aether Vial may sound like a weird number, but it's a thing that you might fetch off of the Urza Saga when you're in sort of like a long grindy game and you need to force some things through later on. Now the reason we're doing this is control has started to wane in the format quite a lot. Now we've got a lot more stompy in the format due to the initiative decks, so having removal main deck is more important than having things like Vial main deck, in my opinion, right now. So we've replaced the 2 Vials we've taken out with 2 more Swords to Plowshares. So we've got 3 Swords to Plowshares main deck, which should hopefully help out a little bit more on that front. Also, we've removed the Mox Opal that I've had in the deck, which I've sort of ummed and erred about before and not been a great fan of, and we've replaced it with a Horizon Canopy. So we've got a little bit more mana in the deck, but this is also one that we can throw away, and it also makes our Crucible of Worlds better because we have slightly more action to go with it. So those are some of the changes. The other 2 changes that are important as well to highlight, well, they're the only other 2 changes, so of course they're important. We've gone from 4 Esper Sentinel, 3 Mother of Runes, and we've swapped those numbers around. I think getting the cards off of Esper Sentinel is not that likely anymore. So I think, and it's just less important. Games are sort of decided in a different fashion now that the meta is sort of shifting away and people are having to cope with the white initiative decks or are playing the white initiative decks, so we kind of need to be able to interact that way. So people are going up slightly in removal if they are trying to play control-y decks to deal with these creatures. And that deck itself has a decent amount of removal post-board especially. And Mother of Runes in creature matchups is pretty good as well, because it lets you stonewall one of their creatures and you can just save your removal for the Seasoned Dungeoneer, which gives them protection from creatures, and then you can just hide behind your Mother of Runes. Now, to add to that, we're also playing a Batterskull. As you can see, Umezawa's Jitte is no longer in the list. What I found with Umezawa's Jitte was that every time I was trying to play Umezawa's Jitte, my creatures were quite small, so I pretty much just have to be like sending my guy in to die to get counters on Jitte if I wanted them, and that just felt really bad to me. Whereas Batterskull is another way of beating down like Kaldra Compleat. This one is actually castable from hand, not too difficult to do that, I don't think. And the lifelink and vigilance on it is very important for changing a race with an aggro deck. So against Stompy, if you can get rid of the first thing that gets the counters on it from the Forge on the Undercity, then you've probably got the bigger creature on the board and you can attack and block with it. And if you're backing up with a Mother of Runes, it's going to be very hard for your opponent to deal with it. And you should be able to just swing a race quite easily with a Batterskull. That's the logic we're going with. Now, I have a few concerns with this main deck. Maybe the 1 Aether Vial is just pointless having. I don't know. Maybe we do need a Jitte. Maybe we need some more graveyard hate apart from just the Saga Lantern main deck. I don't know. But that's why we're testing it today. So in case you haven't seen this deck before and you're new to my channel, this is a mono-white painter deck. So we're using Painter Servant Grindstone to mill our opponent out, but we have a very strong beatdown plan through these 4 Stoneforge Mystics into equipment, as well as the Urza Saga beatdown plan. To tie the whole room together, we have these Oswald Fiddlebenders, which allow us to tutor for either half of our combo, as well as some singletons. So we have a portable hole that we can tutor off of an Urza Saga token or an Ancient Den. We have a Crucible of Worlds that we can tutor off of a Painter Servant with. And we have a bunch of things that can get with either Urza Saga or Painter Servant. So the Aether Vial, the Pithing Needle, the Shadowspear and the Soul Guide Lantern. Potentially having another 2-drop artifact here would be quite nice as well, just so you can have a smoother Oswald curve without having to get rid of your Painter Servant necessarily. But we're going to run it like this and see how we go. We can always use the Ethersworn Canonist to sack because this is an artifact itself. But this is such a useful lock piece because it means if they go to do a counter spell or a kill spell, once you've got your combo in play, they're sort of locked out of the game, because if they try and kill it, then you grind them out. So you can just wait until you can double spell basically, and they can't really cast any spells. Okay, so that's what the deck wants to do. We've got Mother of Runes to protect our painter, and we can name a colour so that we can make sure our Mother of Runes can always protect our painter. But we're not trying to leverage the effect of the changing the colours, apart from the grindstone really. That's more or less it. Sometimes we're going to be naming black to like stop snuff outs and things, but mostly we're going to be naming a colour that's not that relevant to our opponent rather than something that's relevant to us. All right, I've spoken for ages about that. Let's have a quick chat at the sideboard. So, Deafening Silence, 3 of these have been in my sideboard for however long I've been playing this deck. And then the Swords to Plowshares, it used to be more when we had less in the board, but obviously we freed up some sideboard space by moving them to the main deck. So here's the other one. A Lion Sash is something that's been in and out of the deck a few times. I think just having another piece of Graveyard Hate is fine. As we got another one here that we could tutor for using the Saga. So that's another one there. We have these Purify the Graves, which is the other piece of Graveyard Hate I want to try out today. In an earlier video, actually, no, I don't think I recorded that one. But I played a league with some Purify the Graves as Graveyard Hate. The logic being, if a Reanimator deck Thought Seizes you, and you have a piece of Graveyard Hate, it's gone. Whereas Purify the Grave isn't gone if they have a piece of Graveyard Hate. So if they go like turn 1 Thought Seize you, and then I'm going to turn 2, I'm going to make my thing, then you just get your Purify the Grave in your graveyard and you can flash it back. So it's fine, and you can always hold it up that way. So I want to try this out. I'm not sure if it's going to be good, but I think it's worth trying. And that's, you know, that's what this channel's for. We try a lot of new stuff out here and there. Anointed Peacekeepers I've had in the deck for a while. Before they were cool, basically. I think it's a really powerful way of messing with your opponent's hand, seeing if the coast is clear for your painter, and it can just really sort of slow down Planeswalkers in control matchups. It's terrible against Delver for the most part, because we're not accelerating it out. But what this does in the control matchups is really powerful. It can basically make a Planeswalker unplayable, or it can look at their hand and strand some cantrips or removal spells. They have to spend entire turns instead of just 1 mana to kill guys. So yeah, and then we got 3 March of Otherworldly Lights because we need to blow up opposing as Sagas, Chalice of the Void, whatever you want. This can hit it. And the last card we have is a Serra Paragon. Now, because we're going down to Aether Vial in the main deck, I wanted another card that's good against the control matchups where it's, you know, a long game and you trade resources backwards and forth. This is just a high impact card that generates more resources on its own. You play this and then you get a card back. So that's the logic for all the cards in the deck. I don't know if they're all going to come together perfectly, but that, again, that's what we're trying. I haven't tested this list out yet. It's all sort of theory crafted. So before we jump into a league, if you like my content or you like Legacy in general, you can subscribe to my channel for free and it really helps me out. If you've already subscribed, likes and comments or shared with other people who like Legacy is very welcome. All right, plug done. Let's jump into a League of Legacy with Grindstoneforge version 2.0. We're into round 1. We're on the play and this is our opening hand. I like it a lot. We have Mother of Runes to then protect our Stoneforge Mystic plan, and then we can eventually get around to Painted Servant. We can interact with our opponent's mana base a little bit with a Wasteland as well. So this seems like a very good keep to me. So I'll play out basic planes and a Mother of Runes this turn. This is not the Mother of Runes that I play in paper. I have one of the Secret Lair arts, which I really like. I think it's the newest Secret Lair, actually. All right, so our opponent's played a Flooded Strand, and they've cracked it. Underground Sea. So this suggests to me Doomsday. Are we about to find the Doomsday here? Okay. Okay, our opponent did a very quick Doomsday pass, so let's have a look through it. There is no basic island left. Okay, they're Street Wraith. Are they going to win this turn? Lotus Petal. Okay. Hang it for blue for a Brainstorm. Lion's Eye Diamond. And then they're going to have a Cycler crack the Lion's Eye Diamond in response. Get the blue and Thassa's Oracle. Okay. So they just had a turn 1 kill. Yep, pretty good. Not much we can do about that, unfortunately. Right, sideboarding. So I think the Doomsday matchup is very poor for our deck because we are a white Durdley deck. So not always ideal. What we do have is these Anointed Peacekeepers which can name Thassa's Oracle and jam them up a little bit. So I don't mind these. Graveyard Hate is probably not going to be where we're at here. So we can get rid of this. The Pithing Needle can name Cyclers. I don't think the Shadowspear is going to be relevant. I don't think we're going to be racing Life Turtles in this one. The Canonist is good here. The Esper Sentinel is good here. The Portable Hole probably isn't doing anything for us either. The Crucible of Worlds is a little bit slow, but if it gets to a slightly grindier game, if we can survive long enough, we can Wasteland them out of the game quite effectively. So I don't hate keeping this in the deck. The Swords to Plowshares are pretty bad unless our opponent is playing... So I don't think we have time for any Tavares as a tutor target here. If our opponent is playing this Shouldered Duke, then we're going to want to keep some Swords to Plowshares in. But I don't realistically know how much we can go into that line. I think we're probably cutting... No, it's probably just 2 Swords to Plowshares actually here, isn't it? We want to keep a high density of creatures so we can beat down our opponent if they Doomsday and pass. The only other thing I might be tempted by here is a Lion Sash because it is a creature and attacks. So this might be better than a Crucible of Worlds just for the purposes of attacking our opponent as quickly as possible. It's tricky to know where... So this is either whether or not this should be the Crucible of Worlds instead. But I think just being able to put them in the ground with Wastelands and recurring them is a way that we can just win the game. So I think we'll submit like this. Like, Lion Sash doesn't really have other text. It's a 2-mana 1/1. I think we can do better than that. Okay, so this hand doesn't have too much in the way of disrupting our opponent, but it has a relatively quick clock because we can Urza Saga out. Is that good enough? I think it has to be. Our opponent kept 7, so I'm pretty sure we lose this game. We can try and mulligan to Deafening Silence, but I'm not really sure that's going to get us where we need to be. It should also be noted that we have slightly less artifacts in our deck compared to what we had before, so maybe the Oswald Fiddlebender isn't quite as much of a powerhouse as he once was in this version of the deck. Okay, they're just going to turn 1 kill us again. There's a Doomsday. Okay, our opponent has finished choosing their Doomsday, so let's see what we've got here. There is no basic island in there. There's 1 Lotus Petal, 2 Lotus Petal, 3 Lotus Petal. So I imagine they probably have a 4th Lotus Petal in their thing, so we can't Wasteland them off the win. Oh, they messed up doing their pile. Alright, so we're going to go to game 3. Our opponent misclicked when they were building their pile, and they had to concede. Otherwise, I think we just got 2... We basically should have lost that one and we'd have got turn 1 twice in a row. Okay, so we have a Deafening Silence and we have an Anointed Peacekeeper. So these are 2 of the sideboard cards we brought in for this matchup. So if that's not a keep, I don't know what it is. But our opponent can kill us on turn 1 as we've seen. They've already mulliganed to 5 cards, so we're probably not getting turn 1 killed, but they could have a turn 1 Doomsday. A Street Wraith. Okay. Street Wraith, Misty Rainforest, pass. Okay. So we get to play out our Deafening Silence this turn. And next turn we get to play out Esper Sentinel and one of our lands. We probably don't play out the Urza Saga because we want to get crank max value out of this. And we're probably playing the Anointed Peacekeeper on 3 so we can at least see our opponent's hand and work out how we need to try and win. So this looks like a Cabal Ritual into Doomsday turn to me. Powder Keg. Sure. This makes me far less inclined to play out my Esper Sentinel. Although I did just draw an incredibly good draw here, so I can't really argue about this. Better lucky than good sometimes. Powder Keg. And we'll play out a 1/1 for 1. This will tax our opponent. So they can put a counter on this, and until they get rid of our Pithing Needle, they can't. Okay, so you're going to pay for the Ponder? They are going to pay for the Ponder, sure. So we've robbed our opponent of another turn, effectively. So this turn we play the Urza Saga and the Peacekeeper, and then we just start cranking out tokens. Should be good. The important thing to know about Powder Keg is that it blows up artifact lands if it's on 0. So let's get our Urza Saga down. We might be able to steal this match because our opponent misclicked round 2. Okay, so they're cracking a Scalding Tarn, so I don't name it with the Anointed Peacekeeper. Let's see what our opponent has in hand. They've got 3 cards. Oh, they are Force of Willingness. They're probably going to pay those so we don't get a card. Okay, that's fine. Not fine, but we'll cope. So we get to come in for 1 damage. Our opponent has 1 card in hand. If it's Doomsday, they can cast Doomsday. And I need to try and do a... I need to be able to kill... They're not going to have a lot of life, but we don't have a lot of pressure until we start cranking out these tokens. We got rid of a Subtlety. I haven't seen this before. Okay, so a Lion's Eye Diamond from our opponent. This means our opponent can make a Doomsday next turn, and then if they draw into a Deep Analysis as their first one, they can win that turn. But they didn't cast a Doomsday this turn. So that's something. That's our turn. Okay, so we play this one out. We just keep making little artifact men. Go to attacks. So on our next turn, we're going to have a pretty big construct. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So they have to cast Doomsday this turn, and they have to win on their next turn through a Deafening Silence, which is possible. I think our opponent has thrown in the towel. Feel bad for our opponent's misclick, but I'll take it. So this is our opening hand. We're on the draw. We have a turn 2 Stoneforge Mystic. We also have the ability to Wasteland some of our opponent's bits and pieces if we need to. I think we can keep this one. It's a little bit slow because we don't have a 1-drop, but I think that's fine because we have a lot of strength here. And at the end of the day, we are playing a fair deck with an unfair combo in, so we do have to keep hands that look very fair. Our opponent has mulliganed to 6 cards so far. Our Badlands. Okay, so we're probably getting reanimated here. So we can at least get to try out our Purify the Grave options. Okay, so we're going to use our Wasteland this turn. Unless we draw a Soulguide Lantern. We did not draw a Soulguide Lantern. Okay. We will Wasteland this. This also gives our opponent minimal information about what deck we're playing in case they do just have the ability to go off this turn. An Unmask. Targeting us. If it wasn't for the Oswald, we'd look just like 60 card D&T here. But the Oswald is going to give them a little bit of pause for thought, I would imagine. Doesn't look like they have Reanimate. So that's something. Soulguide Lantern, please. We did not draw a Soulguide Lantern. We will play out this Karakas. So if they play the Grizzlebrand, we can at least get it out of play this turn. Now they're going to draw a load of cards, so Wastelanding them is not really going to work if they do get the Grizzlebrand in play. So just a pass there. Interesting. That has to mean they don't have a reanimation spell in hand, because all their reanimation spells cost 2. So I think this means it's our opportune moment to Stoneforge Mystic here. And we'll go and get ourselves a Kaldra. Having a Lion Sash in the main would be good for a situation like this, which is something that we have had in the main in a previous version of this deck, but not today. So we can drop a Kaldra in next turn if we need to. Is this going to be a Flashback Cabal? A Flashback Face Loom? Okay, so they had an Animate dead. Alright. So they can discard the Kaldra out of our hand, most likely, because their deck's just full of discarded effects. So we're going to have to try and Karakas away their Grizzlebrand and deploy a Batterskull unless they can take both out of our hand. In which case, we're in trouble. Because they're definitely going to be able to field another creature if they want to here. So there's the Entomb for Archon of Cruelty this turn, I imagine. Yeah, so they're going to play the Archon out. It's going to kill our Stoneforge, make us discard a card. They're only on 4, but we can't really do anything about that. I don't think this is going to be an Oswald Fiddlebender game, is it? I think we are just dead here. We need to draw Swords to Plowshares so we can bounce this and then plow the Archon. That's about the best it gets. Are those extra plows in our deck going to come in handy? They're not. Okay, so what is our solution here? Play out the Wasteland. Play out Mother of Runes. Just trying to work out if there's any point bouncing it now or not. Yeah. Might as well bounce it now, I think. Playing out this Mother of Runes was not a smart idea because we're going to have to sacrifice it to the Archon, aren't we? Oops. That wasn't very smart. So this is going to come in. We're going to lose our Mother. And Batterskull is something we can cast. I think we get rid of the Kaldra here. We're certainly not looking great right now. So we do die on the next turn if we don't draw a Swords to Plowshares. Our opponent has 7 cards in hand, so that is not a Swords to Plowshares. We are dead. Alright, sideboarding. We get to play these Purify the Greys and see if they are any good. We get to play a Lion Sash, and we get to play this Grafdigger's Cage. Then we have a bunch of other cards to look at. So, Pithing Needle on Grizzlebrand sounds good to me. We do not need an Aether Vial in our deck. The Batterskull is probably not relevant in our deck, whereas the Kaldra is because it beats quickly. The Shadowspear is probably not really where we need to be either. Like, we're either going to win this game or we're not, if you know what I mean. The Portable Hole is something we can shoot a 4 that takes out Animate Dead, so I don't hate that being in our deck. The Mother of Runes is probably okay, but not amazing. The Fiddlebender is a little bit slow. I don't think this is one of those games where we have time to Crucible of Worlds our opponent out. So now we have choices. Do we want these Deafening Silences in to slow our opponent down? Make them just one spell a turn? That's probably better than having Mother of Runes in our deck, to be honest. And the other option we have here is bring in other source of Plowshares, because our opponent can play a show and tell. Have these. Do we want some of these guys just as a way to beat down relatively quickly? The Fiddlebender is something that can tutor for Graveyard Hate, so I don't really want to strip any of those out. I don't think just trying to curve a turn 3 win is going to be effective here. So I think we can drop some of these cards. Is it 2 Grindstones? Grindstone's the easiest thing to find because as a Saga. So we're going to submit like this. And this can beat down slowly if we get into a situation where we have the graveyard covered. So this is what we're going to do. This is not a good matchup. We will keep this hand. We have 3 cards we want in this matchup and a Fiddlebender to do something with at some point. So we're going to play out Plains and a Soulguide Lantern, I think, here. I think Soulguide Lantern is the best bet. Just get it down. Because they can discard a Purifier of the Grave, and that doesn't matter. And Deafening Silence, I'd rather just have Graveyard Hate in play. So we've got the graveyards covered right now. So now our opponent needs to find a way out of this. So it's probably just going to be a Thoughtseize at our hand, I would imagine. Yeah, so targeting us. We don't really have any good creatures to reanimate, so that's not an issue. We're probably losing the Fiddlebender here. No, the Deafening Silence. Okay. That means they could have like a show and tell off of the Lotus Petal line for next turn. Or they're just giving us maximum disrespect for our little Oswald. So we do play out our Oswald. And then we pass the turn. We don't really want to tinker away our Soulguide Lantern unless we have something really, really good to find with it. So like if it's going to be a win with Painter's Servant while holding up Purify the Grave, then that's fine. An Anointed Peacekeeper. I like this. We'll play out this basic Plains because they haven't seen the Wasteland. So let's try this guy. Now they should be cracking their Polluted Delta in response. They did not crack their Polluted Delta in response. That is interesting to me. I am quite happy to name Polluted Delta, I think, here. Sema's Emissary, if they draw a Show and Tell, I don't think we name Show and Tell here. Like, the names here is either we name Show and Tell, or we name Polluted Delta here. The question is, what sideboard cards do they have to deal with our creatures? If we name the Polluted Delta, we also shut off the Grief being cast anytime soon. We'll name the Polluted Delta. So this means that our opponent needs to find another land before they can do their Polluted Delta, and then we can also Wasteland their Polluted Delta. Now, if they find another land and that land happens to be a Polluted Delta, then we're going to feel pretty happy about that. They can cast a Grief, but all it will see is a Wasteland and get rid of the Purify the Grave, which we can still cast. So we have a clock, a 3-turn clock. We've got the graveyard covered. Okay, so there's the win. Now we just have to do it again on the draw, which is a big ask, to be honest. But here we are. Let's submit and hope for the best. So this hand doesn't have any Graveyard Hate. It doesn't have any white mana either. So yeah, it does have Graveyard Hate. It has Lion Sash. But this is very slow Graveyard Hate. And it also isn't something we can cast. So we have to mulligan this hand. If this was a Plains, I would keep this hand. It is not a Plains. I think we have to mulligan. Yeah. Like, we're not going to get much better than this, I don't think. So we'll put this back. And I think we can put back 1 plow here. So we've got the graveyard covered. We've got a creature covered via Show and Tell. And we've got a way of winning the game and a bit of disruption with her mana base. I think this is the best of the bunch we have here. Our opponent kept a 7, so we're probably just dead. I don't particularly think this is a very good matchup, but we managed to get lucky against Doomsday, so maybe we'll get lucky here. This could be a Faithless Looting and Pass turn, which would be excellent for us, because we get profit on the Soulguide Lantern on the way in and on the way out. Okay, we might be able to win this game. So we play this one, get rid of the Grizzlebrand. Okay, so now they're on a show and tell line, because we have this covered. Next turn we can Wasteland to keep them further away from show and tell. And we can follow that up with the Deafening Silence. They could show and tell us here. There's not much we can do about that. Okay, so they don't have show and tell in hand. Or they don't have a creature and show and tell. The fact they didn't cast their Faith is Looting is interesting to me. Painter's Servant. Interesting. I don't think we should be Wastelanding here. Question is, should we be casting Deafening Silence or should we be holding up Source of Plowshares? If we had 2 white sources, we could do both. Let me play this out because this gets us our combo to kill our opponent with. Now, would we rather have a Deafening Silence or a Source to Plowshares? Our opponent could also be just getting ready for a Wear Tear, which I think means we're supposed to Deafening Silence because that buys us another turn. A Wear Tear is very good against us right now. It takes both of these out and we lose, I think. But we might be able to steal this game still. Serenity. Yeah, that's an annoying one. This is going to hit our Urza Saga as well. So now we're also in the awkward situation of, do we Wasteland them and be down to 1 land? I guess we can Wasteland them, crack the Soulguide Lantern to draw a card. Yeah, I think that's probably the best we get here. Try and strip our opponent's resources out. It's not good. Yeah, Serenity is pretty bad news for us. Okay, so we will draw a card with this one. I think it's more important to dig into lands than it is to take out the Faithless Lootings here, when our opponent only has 1 mana right now. Okay, it looks like they're stuck on 1 land though. So that Wasteland play was pretty good. We still need to try and win the game somehow. The Karakas is nice. We can play out the Karakas and play out the Deafening Silence here. We could have played the Painter's Servant just to have a 1 power clock, but I think our opponent's going to find action before that becomes a thing that can kill our opponent. We're probably on the Grindstone plan here. Unmask, targeting us. Sure. I think we're going to lose Painter's Servant here, but it could be the Source to Plowshares, but I suspect it's the Painter's Servant, because that's the thing that is going to clock them eventually. No, they took the Plow. Interesting. So we don't name black here. Do we name white? Is that going to help them or hinder them or do anything? I don't think it's going to make any difference. It will make our artifacts look uglier though. Oh. So we've got Grizzlebrand kind of covered, but they get to draw a load of cards, so it's not great for us. Okay, they didn't do an Entomb in the end step, so we're not getting reanimated on this turn. The power of Wasteland compels me. Okay. Stoneforge Mystic would be a great draw here because it would apply a lot of pressure, or some other way of keeping the graveyard in check would also be acceptable. An Anointed Peacekeeper is a pretty good one though. I'll take this. What have you got for us? Okay, they've just conceded to the Anointed Peacekeeper. So we managed to beat 2 of our bad matchups so far in this league. So it's not a bad way to start the league off. The Purify the Grave, it came up, and it would have been great in that situation where our opponent is unmasking us and whatever. But we already had an additional piece of graveyard here. But if we only had the Purify the Grave there, we're still fine. So yeah, pretty happy with that. Let's go on to the 3rd round. So this is our opening hand. We don't have a Plains, but we do have 2 mana sources and an Aether Vial, so I think we can keep this one. Let's see what our opponent is playing. Once upon a time, this could be Mutant Elves, it could be regular Elves, it could be Cloudpost, it could be a Stompy. I've seen white Stompy with Once Upon a Time because it's so important to get the first initiative creature. I don't think that's right, but I've seen people doing it. Let's see what they get. Llanowar Elves. Okay, so this is Mutant Elves, I believe. A Wasteland. Not a big fan of seeing the Wasteland. Which of these do I care about getting Wastelanded most? I would rather keep my Ancient Den because it powers up other stuff. So we will make an Aether Vial. We might be in trouble here because they're a deck that can just go and get Collector Reefs and all sorts. They're unlikely to snap off the Wasteland because I have an Aether Vial, but they could still do it. Because the Aether Vial just means that we get to ignore. Oh, wow. Our opponent missed on land. That's pretty good for us. And we got a basic land. Okay, it's all coming up, Millhouse. I think we take the mana efficient play here. And then we're getting pretty close to putting in the Painted Servant with Mother of Runes protection next turn. So we're 1 mana shy of being able to kill them next turn. A Cradle is not the land they wanted. Our opponent had a pretty awkward keep by the looks of it. They were really hoping that once upon a time would bail them out, and it hasn't. So they might be able to steal another game. Okay, so the Wasteland is coming in. Let's have Mother of Runes. So we're going to put this up to 2. We're not going to put in the Sentinel now. We can just pay for the Sentinel. We're not worried about counter spells from our opponent. This is just a mana battery right now. Singleton Aether Vial, come in and clutch. Another Horizon Canopy. So if we play this one out. So we can get the Grindstone this turn. But we're going to need 2 more mana before that becomes relevant. So I think what we're supposed to do here is play out the Canonist and then attack with the Oswald. We'll hold this back because sometimes these decks can run things like, well, like they can't run Snuff Out right now, but they can have removal. I don't think the 1 damage is really what we're doing. But this is just an attack opportunity. We're not trying to win the game via damage this time, I don't think. A Dryad Arbor, that's very good for our opponent. Obviously it's very late, so they're quite far behind now. But they're going to play out an Elvish Mystic. Not the one I know about. It feels like a slight error. So we'll activate this now. Yes, we'll use this ability. We will name black in case I have Snuff Out, I think. If it's new in Elves, I've seen it in there. We will not use our Aether Vial. We will not crank this up now because we don't have any 3-drops in our deck. Pre-board. What do you got for us, deck? Okay, so we have another Plains. So this turn, I think we just play out the Esper Sentinel, and then we pass a turn, and the next turn we can Grindstone our opponent out of the game. Because we can use this to sack, and then we got 3 mana to activate. And we can do all of that with the Mother of Runes in play. And they can only cast 1 spell, like 1 removal spell, so we can definitely Mother of Runes our guy. So they have 4 mana this turn, so they could natural order, but it's not going to be a lethal natural order. It could be a scary natural order that does something to mess with us. A Fiend Artisan, sure. That doesn't really do anything. Surprised they didn't use their guys for this. And then they'd have 3 mana. They're still not deploying this Llanowar Elves that we've seen either. So our opponent could have an Endurance here. Go and get a Grindstone. Activate Grindstone, target our opponent. 1, 2, 3. Okay, they're just letting me see the whole deck. Which means they probably have an Endurance right now. No, there's 1 Endurance in their deck and it's in their graveyard right now. Cool. So we stole game 1 because our opponent didn't really do a great deal. So for this matchup, what we want to do is remove the things that our opponent is putting into play. So, Source to Plowshares is good at doing that. Grafdigger's Cage is very good against some of the things they're trying to assemble. March of Otherworldly Light is relatively cheap to kill some of their guys. So I like these things. Soulground Lantern is fine, it has text, so does Pithing Needle. Our Mother of Runes will be relatively useful here. The Esper Sentinel, not so much. I think Crucible of Worlds has some decent text on it here. The Ethersworn Canonist is fine, but I don't think it's going to be doing like amazing things here. I think we can definitely trim on them. So if we're trimming these 2, they haven't really seen our Stoneforge beatdown side either. So we can run it like this. Although I do quite like Lion Sash as well. So maybe Lion Sash is just better than Canonist here. So we've got more ways of hating on their graveyard because they're not a graveyard deck, but they have a lot of utility built into their graveyard. So I think this is looking like a good setup. We've got a load more removal. We've got some graveyard hate. We've got some ways of hating on the Green Sun Zenith. And we've got a Crucible so we can keep Wasteland in all their cradles. The Aether Vial is the only thing that could maybe be something else, but I'm just trying to think what I would put in. Like an Anointed Peacekeeper can make the Fiend Artisan more expensive. So I don't hate this as a plan. So if we want these 3 cards, what are we looking at cutting? So we could cut an Aether Vial, we could cut... I think we still want the Portable Holes here. Probably cutting Grindstone and a Painter. Or was it 2 Painter? No, I think we just cut 1 Grindstone, 1 Painter here. That looks fine. Yeah, okay. We'll submit like this. So we're sort of like a mid-rangey, control-y type strategy here. We're going to be trying to remove their permanents whilst making our own. This hand does not have enough mana to support it. If this was a Plains, I could think about it. But the fact that it's a non-basic means that I don't really want anything to do with this hand, in my opinion. Ooh, Malagam. This hand is better. We have a removal spell. We have a guy. We can stick a thing on it. And keep this. We're a little bit cold to Collector Roof, but we can kill the Collector Roof. One of these lands has to go back. I think it probably should be one of the artifact lands. Okay. So our plan is removal spell, their Collector Roof. We can't really spend our Ancient Den. We can't really spend our Thoughtseize off of an Ancient Den to kill something that isn't a Collector Roof this game, I don't think. But they are going to tutor for Collector Roof as soon as they can. So I'm pretty confident that we can hit the target we want with it. Okay, our opponent has got Karakas. Windswept Teeth, are they going to cast one of their many mana dorks? I have to imagine they will. A Bayou into Llanowar Elves, sure. The classic Llanowar Elves. So we can Wasteland them this turn if we want to. Or we can start building up to... I'd rather save the Wasteland for something like Cradle. So I think this turn we play out the Ancient Den. And we hold this up. So if our opponent goes to Greenstone Zenith, we can float a white. That might change what they get though. But we'll see. A Wasteland. Okay, that's not great for us. I'm happy we didn't snap off this Wasteland now because we're going to need the mana from this. We do still have another white source, so I should just go to their next main phase here and then cast whatever. I may telegraph that we have a swords, but it's just good practice to float mana even if you're not casting anything anyway. The Llanowar Elves getting in for 1 damage. So we could have ploughed this and then Wasteland them, but we don't know if they've... already know they've got 1 land card in hand. I don't think I want to try and cheese this game when they can just keep making these guys. Now this is a thing that might be worth Source of Plowsharesing. But we will see. What are we going to draw? Another plough would be great. An Ancient Den. I think we can dangle this one out there. And see if they spend their time trying to Wasteland us again. Or if they like get a Collector Roof maybe. Okay. So the Wastelanding them strategy was definitely not the way to go because they have multiple lands here. What are you going to show us? This is like a Green Sun Zenith for 2. We'll float a white. This might change what they get. There's a Collector Roof. Sure. Goodbye, Collector Roof. Pretty telegraphed Source of Plowshares, but I think they still go for it, right? Because why not, right? We are behind now. They played Mana Dorks and 1-drops and Wasteland, and we're kind of just sitting around. So I think we can play out our own Wasteland this turn. And the Mother of Runes. We don't really want to use this Wasteland, but if we get in a situation where we have to, then sure. What we want to do is play the Urza Saga and the Peacekeeper next turn. If we can make the Reclaimer ability cost 4, that's going to be pretty good for us. Why would Symbiote? We can make this cost 2 as well. I think we need to see what our opponent's working with before we make a decision. So they're going to come in for 3 here. They're either going to come in for 3 or tutor. Okay, so they're just coming in for 3. The Karakas can hit our Oswald, but we're not too worried about that, I don't think. Okay. So, this is the Urza Saga turn. We need to crank out maximum value, so we'll see what our opponent's working with. They've got 2 cards in hand. So hopefully we can work out their game plan and how to win the game here. So what does this look like? 3 mana. Is this an Endurance being cast? Yes, it's an Endurance being cast. So they're very much on just the the medium beatdown plan. But we might see a natural order in their hand, which might change things. I have to imagine they don't have one because you probably don't cast Endurance if you do. Unless you've got Cradle as well. Just a Dryad Arbor. Okay, so what's scarier to me? The Wildwood Symbiote or the Elvish Reclaimer here? I think it's just the Elvish Reclaimer. We don't really care about the bounce trick with the Symbiote because we're going to have Trample on our guys and they eventually start popping off. So we can remove black mana from our opponent if that's a thing that matters, but I don't think it is. A Cradle is going to make them a lot of mana if they get it, and they can still do it. They just have to spend their whole turn doing it. But I guess they probably don't have much else going on because we just saw their hand and it's just a Dryad Arbor. That's all the cards we know. And they're both coming in. I think we have to block. And Mother of Runes, that guy. Now we can get blown out by removal here, but our opponent has one card in hand, and we kind of need to protect our life total. Okay, so our Urza Saga is online now. So we'll play our basic planes, and they can untap their Elvish Reclaimer here, so we don't want to be attacking just yet. But what we do want to do is play out another artifact. We don't want... We could equip it here, but I think we just want to make a big Urza Saga token this turn. So it's going to be 3 this turn, which isn't huge, but it's going to get lifelink and be much bigger. We got the mana to equip Shadowspear next turn as well because we've got 2 lands in hand. Now our opponent can draw a natural order and kill us, but hopefully that's a thing that we can work around in the near future. It's by getting enough life to survive, but we're going to need quite a lot of life for that. I think we put the Shadowspear on the Peacekeeper purely because it has Vigilance. Yeah, they can't attack this turn because I can double block and protect the one that's first. Okay, so now we start the Saga train rolling. We're going to get the Grafdigger's Cage here so that we can win against a natural order. Also makes their Green Sun Zenith a bad top deck. I think we actually just equip on the token here. Just get the trample going. There's going to be a hard cast Force of Vigor. Passaggio who endures. So this isn't a thing that we can protect now, which is a bit annoying. Yes, I'd like to have another land. That's a bit of a shame. So I think what we need to do now is if we plow this guy and attack, it means they can't do the elf bouncy trick. Because we don't have trample anymore, we need to do this. So if they want to double block, we can give it pro green. And they just lose a guy. So they're probably just going to take 4 because they're on 21 life. They can take a few hits. So next time we're probably going to play and cash in our Horizon Canopy. We can hardcast a Batterskull if we draw it. It's pretty cool. Slap that on a construct token. We've shut off the 2 best cards in our opponent's deck, but they can naturally draw a Crater Hoof and play it soon. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So they can go and get a Cradle. Okay, so what do we have this turn? A Portable Hole is quite a nice one. We'll play this out. And let's try a Portable Hole. It pumps our construct, so it's definitely worth doing. And we can get rid of the Reclaimer here. Now they can go and get a Cradle, but we can also blow it up with a Wasteland. Because it comes in tap, they'll never get the ability to use it. They can't. It's not crop rotation. Okay, so Wooded Foothills is being cracked here. Feels like they're going to have a spin on the Reclaimer. Okay. What are you going for? This will cost you 4 mana. Sure. So sacrifice one of their lands. What are they going to find? So this is creature cards. It doesn't affect other permanent types. A Cradle, sure. We will immediately Wasteland the Cradle. We are not about that. So we probably should have cracked the Canopy first, just in case we do another artifact, so we do more damage here. They might put a guy under the bus, but I don't think they can afford to. They need to keep their guys in play. So they draw a Cradle, it's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So that might be enough to kill us with 2 guys. Each one we get 1, 2, 3, 4. So we get +8, and the original 8, so that's 16 trample. So, yeah, if they have Cradle and Crater Hoof, then they can kill us. So I think they have to just take the 10 here. So I think we should have sacked this earlier. A Mother of Runes. Is it worth playing this one out? It means if we draw any artifact, we kill our opponent on the next turn. I think that's worth doing. It does show that we don't have anything, so if they do have that specific draw that I mentioned, then they can kill us. Okay, so we are not dead. So if we draw another artifact, we can kill them through removal. Like, we can kill them anyway, we can just give 2 guys pro green. Our opponent does still have 1 card in hand. Right, back to us. What are we going to draw? A Painter's Servant. What difference does that make? So if we attack with... I think we play out the Painter's Servant here. This pumps both of our guys. So we will name white, I think. So we'd like to give this guy protection from green. We just need to attack with the 1 guy here. And we can hold up against the removal. We could have given it protection from green, from white, because everything has it. But if they have Force of Vigor here, I guess we just use the other mother. I think we've got it covered either way. We won that game because our opponent kept a really bad hand in the first game, I think. No, was that game? Yeah, the first game they kept a really bad hand. This hand was fine, but we took out the little pieces and they wasted a Wasteland on our Ancient Den when we had an Urza Saga coming. I don't think you just Wasteland there unless you're like quite far ahead and you're going to win the tempo game. I think you need to hold your Wastelands for priority targets. They saw Oswald and things, so they should have expected Urza Saga. So as much as I love Wasteland and people, you need to be careful about when you actually do it. All right, so that's 3-0, and we're going into the 4th round. We're on the play for round 4. Our opening hand is unplayable. Let's mulligan. This is a weird hand. I think we keep. Really doesn't go anywhere. It needs some cards to really get anywhere. I think we have to keep it still. We have got a lot of live draws here, but let it be known I'm very unhappy about this hand. Opponent's gone to 6 cards so far. Opponent's gone to 5 cards. I suspect whatever they're doing is not really going to care much about my Aether Vial, unless they've just got a selection of really bad hands. But it feels more like they're looking for specific pieces, which is Combo Town. Let's see which one it is. Mox Diamond. What are they getting rid of? A Karakas. Ancient Tomb. Okay, so they're stompy, but with the Mox Diamond plan. Sure. I don't think our hand is going to stack up very well against the initiative here, which is unfortunate. But if we draw a Stoneforge Mystic now, then we'll be alright. But it doesn't take long for the initiative to kill you. Right, so we're going to draw another land. I suppose we play a Canonist. I don't think this is going to have much of an impact on our opponent. It stops them playing like another Mox effect, but they'll come down turn 1 anyway, so this is probably going to get boarded out anyway if I've got anything better that I can put in, like my adventurers, not my adventurers, my peacekeepers. They'll probably be coming in here. So if we draw Grindstone, we can outrace the initiative here if our opponent doesn't have removal. What's interesting about these initiative builds our opponent's thinking for a while is the choice between Mox Diamond or Chrome Mox, because Chrome Mox obviously gets rid of one of your threats in order to make spells, but it means you can run lower land count, whereas this means you need a higher land count, but you never have to get rid of a threat for mana. So it's an interesting trade-off. I think the Chrome Mox is probably better, but who knows? More testing will bear out. So we're going to get clocked in the face for 5 here. And next time we're going to take 5 from the Undercity and another 5 from this, and that's going to put us to 5 life. So we need to draw our Grindstone. We don't really want to play the Painter out if we can help it, because we want to keep information hidden from our opponent. We don't want them to bring in too much in the way of artifact disruption, even though we just have 2 artifacts in play right now. There's a Seasoned Dungeoneer, another White Plume. Sure. So this hits us for 5 now. So we get to 10. So this is our opponent's turn 2, and we're on 10 life, facing down 8 power. So I don't think that the Undercity is too powerful for Legacy, but I'm not a massive fan of the play style of it, really. But maybe I'll play it myself and have a really good time and change my mind. Who knows? We will put these on. Going through some motions just in case we draw the one thing that saves us. Like a Source to Plowshares is fine here. It buys us a decent chunk of time. So we draw. An Eiganjo. Okay, so this kills one of their creatures at least. We can block the 5/5 and kill it if we want to. Next turn they do get to Throne of the Dead 3. So we can take no damage this turn, or we can clear the 5/5 off the board. Or we can take 5. There's a lot of options. If we take no damage this turn, so if we take no damage this turn, that buys us a whole other turn. But if they play any threat, I think we should be blocking here. And then we can channel this onto this guy. Now, if they have a swords, they might use it on our Canonist, which means they're not deploying a threat, and they're not also using it for our painter when the time comes. But we get to trade here. Not great for us, but they do need to commit another threat. Oh, okay, so they are red-white initiative. Okay. So this one has trample, so I'm glad I blocked the one that didn't. Although 4 damage on this would be quite nice. So this is also going to throw in the dead 3. So we're almost certainly dead unless we draw a Grindstone. But we've been running quite hot, so maybe we'll draw the Grindstone. Let's see. We are definitely dead on their next turn. They have a lot of trample damage. Come on, magic god, smile upon me. I'll go through the rigmarole of this as well. We will not use a count for this. Come on, magic gods. Up lanes, we're dead. So our hand wasn't very good, and we drew abysmally. So, all right. Source of Plowshares is going to be good here. The Anointed Peacekeeper is going to be pretty reasonable. The March of Otherworldly Lights, we can snipe out some of their bits and pieces if we need to. And Serra Paragon trades relatively well with some of the creatures they're doing and can block their flyers, so I don't hate these things. The Grafdigger's Cage is... it stops the throne, the final one, so I don't hate that. So Pithing Needle isn't going to be great here. Saga Lantern isn't going to do anything here. I don't think Aether Vial does enough. The Crucible of Worlds plan is okay. We can strip out their permanents later on if we need to. If we can just stabilize the board, we can then keep rebuying Wasteland. So that might be a strategy we want to employ here. Our 2 big equipments are going to be excellent here. So we're looking at cutting 3 more things. Though they're a Karakas deck, so we're probably trimming these Fiddlebenders. And we're just trimming 2 Fiddlebenders here. And probably a painter. We could trim a Grindstone. Have a 3-3 split. Would I rather have another Fiddlebender and a Grindstone? I think I probably would. Try like that. Okay. So this is one of the matchups I wanted to test against. So nice. Didn't want to necessarily get bodied that hard. But there we go. So what does this hand do? Nothing really. We have to mulligan this. Okay. So this seems good. We have our combo. We have a Mother Runes protect it. We have a Grafdigger's Cage we don't really care too much for, to be honest. Like, it stops Throne of the Dead 3, but we should be winning before that happens. So we're going to keep this, and we're going to bottom this Grafdigger's Cage. I'm going to say done. Our opponent kept 7, which isn't really great for us. So we have to play this guy out on 1. We could have played the Saga out on 1 to try and kill them on 3, but we need to play this on 2. So we needed to play this at some point. Okay, so our opponent's got a Mox Diamond, a Plains, an Ancient Tomb, and most likely a White Plume Adventurer. Anointed Peacekeeper. Okay. This is interesting. They can name Mother of Runes, or they can name Grindstone, or they can name Urza Saga. Our opponent has said, ah, in chat. They've named Urza Saga. So we're not going to be making constructs. I don't think this is the correct name, but it depends what else they have in their hand if they've got removal. It would have been nice to sort of try the Stoneforge half of the deck. It's kind of what I wanted for this matchup, really. So, we play out this Saga. I think we have to play out the Painter here. And if I name white, that'll help their Solitude. So I can't name white here. So I think we name green. Have some green artifacts. Our opponent is a fan of the deck. So that's good. Right. So we got this Ancient Tomb tapping for a White Plume Adventurer. Sure. So this is going to get the initiative on them. We can take the initiative back whenever we want because we can give our guy protection, but that does leave us shields down. Our opponent has 4 cards in hand. We do have to just take this, unfortunately. They're testing us here. Sure, you can untap one of your untapped guys. This is going up to 2 now. This Karakas probably isn't doing anything here. I think we play out the Karakas here. And then we play out the Oswald. And then we can bounce our Oswald. So we can soak up some damage quite nicely. We're trying to dodge the Seasoned Dungeoneer, really. The Undercity is green. That's interesting. So they are... Okay, they went for the Lost Well, so they scryed. It's just kind of flipped the way it looks because they've gone down that line. That's interesting. Didn't know it did that. So we can tread water with the Fiddlebender if we need to, which is hopefully the plan. If our opponent taps out, then it means we have to basically fade double Solitude, is the thing that we're worried about. They put one of their cards on top with their scry, which suggests to me that they have a removal spell. Oh, they don't have a removal spell. Okay, so our opponent could have just bluffed us, but they chose not to, which is interesting to know. We can bring in the Pithing Needle to name Touch of the Spirit Realm, so they can't blink anything, which I don't hate as a plan either. So maybe we want to do that. Maybe Crucible of Worlds is too slow, although when we get set up, pretty good. Probably the Esper Sentinel is not so great. Maybe we'll take the Pithing Needle to stop that and submit. We have a removal spell. We have a Batterskull that we can maybe eventually do something with. And we have a Wasteland. I think we have to keep this. I would rather have a Stoneforge than a Batterskull, obviously, but beggars and choosers are aligned in an interesting fashion sometimes. Cavern of Souls from our opponent. So this is unlikely to be a turn 1 threat. If they're leading out on the Cavern, I think we're inclined to Wasteland them here. We've got so many manas here. Let's just Wasteland them and see if we can put them in the dirt. Okay, so we can Crucible Wasteland them at some point in this game if we want. Which, if you know me, you know that's something I love to do in Magic the Gathering. It's my favourite card. And Anointed Peacekeeper. Okay, so this is probably going to name Swords to Plowshares. So the thing about playing a stompy deck is you have to be really careful with your sequencing. Because if you sequence your things out of order, you can lose a game like that. You have to know the order you're playing your threats in. So you make less decisions with a stompy deck, but every decision has way more weight to it than with a lot of blue decks. Because blue decks have got a lot more margins to work with due to ponders and brainstorms and being able to find answers. Whereas you need to... Yeah, okay, so there's the Swords to Plowshares. Our opponent didn't make a White Plume Adventurer though, so that's good for us. So what do we do this turn? I think we just play out Painted Servant. And we're going to name red. Because why not? Look how nice this looks. We just don't name white because our opponent plays Solitude and we don't. If they spend time and resources on this Painted Servant, that's fine. We're just kind of heading up to Batterskull. So this could be a Caves of Chaos Adventurer turn. A Path to Exile. This is good. We actively want them to do this. Anything that accelerates us is going to help. Because our Batterskull is hopefully going to be the big hammer that we drop on our opponent. Archon of Emeria. Our opponent has 1 card in hand. So, this is the turn where we decide if we are Wastelanding or not. I think we're either Wastelanding or Swordsing. I think we should just Wasteland here. Now, this comes in tapped, but next turn we can then snipe one of their lands out. Now, this could be an error if our opponent has a follow-up threat. Okay, so they have the best threat in their deck. Not ideal, but we can kill this next turn and Wasteland them. They do get a basic off of this, though. Maybe this turn we're just playing the Batterskull. With our opponent with 1 card in hand, we can then just start leveraging our swords and things like that. So, yeah, I think it's Batterskull this turn. And this is only non-basics come into play tapped. So we can play out our planes and play a Batterskull. And that's hopefully going to be good. It's the reason it's in the deck is for this matchup, so among other things. But Play our basic planes. Cast this Batterskull. Does our opponent have the Swords to Plowshares? Now, the Anointed Peacekeeper can get bigger, but we can Swords to Plowshares. What they can do is make the Seasoned Dungeoneer get big as well, and then I have 2 large threats to contend with. But if the Seasoned Dungeoneer is attacking, then it means I can kill the one that's blocking and then attack with the Germ. We'll see what they choose to do here. We're going to take a hit this turn, that's for sure. I think the correct play here is put 2 on the Peacekeeper and then attack and give this guy protection. Okay. So they're attacking for exactly 11 damage if they attack now. Do they just have a removal spell for my guy? They do. That's us done. Alright, trophy is dead, unfortunately. Our opponent's hand was pretty good and our hand was pretty medium. I think if we start out with a Stoneforge Mystic instead, I think we probably win that game because our opponent's hand wasn't very explosive. I had a lot of good stuff in it that kind of jammed us up just a little bit. So the other option we had was play the Serra Paragon out that turn, but the Serra Paragon is going to be too small to block anything other than the Archimeria, which they can then pump. So I think they just had us coming and going a bit there. We should have maybe taken a turn off with Swords to Plowsharesing or something. All right, on to the final round. Okay, we're on the play for the final round. Our opponent is a Yorion deck. Our hand here is pretty fine against most Yorion decks, I think. Breakfast might prove a little bit challenging for us if it's a Cephalid Breakfast deck. But other than that, I'm pretty happy about this, so I'm going to keep. So I don't know if we're looking at taxes or if we're looking at one of the Yorion piles. Our opponent is a fan of the channel, which means they probably know what we're doing. Because I play this deck quite a bit. Karakas. Okay, so our opponent is... Okay, and an Aether Vial. So our opponent is definitely on D&T, I would say. That's a pretty safe assumption. So let's see how this pans out. Okay. I don't hate where we're at here. We'll play out this. Do we hold the Wasteland? Or do we just play out a Canonist? I think play out the Canonist. So we need to get a 4th mana so we can play out this Ancient Den. Sorry, this Grindstone. We did more than just the Ancient Den. Basic Plains, it's not Wasteland. Happy about that. You should always activate your Aether Vials as well. Unless you've got something that like weirdly needs a response, a creature that needs to respond. But generally you don't want your opponent to know when a creature's coming down, you just want to activate it anyway. Source Plowshares immediately on our Mother of Runes. Bit rude, but makes sense. So we will put a counter on our Aether Vial, which is now on 2. And we have an Oswald Fiddlebender. So we can play out our Ancient Den. I think we play out the Grindstone here. Our opponent can make a 1/1. A 1-mana guy. I think it's worth attacking him with this. Just get a couple of points of damage in. So our opponent's end step, we're going to put in this Oswald and see what they do with their Karakas. They might bounce it before we go to our turn, which means we can untap, put the Painter in and try and grind them. Wasteland. Wasteland on our Ancient Den. That's annoying. It's one of the things we didn't want to happen. So we'll activate our Aether Vial. We will put in an Oswald Fiddlebender. Would you like to use your Karakas? They would like to use their Karakas. Perfectly understandable. I'll put this trigger on the stack, but we will not add a counter because we have no 3-drops on our deck. A Grindstone, you say? Interesting. An interesting development for sure. If we can get our Fiddlebender in, we can go and get a Crucible here. Our opponent can have Kataki in their deck because they can have it as a one-of recruiter target. So I think we're supposed to hold off here and then just try and put the Fiddlebender in at end step. So we're in a bit of trouble, but I think we can be okay. If this is a Stoneforge Mystic, then okay, that's one of the less scary ones that they could have played. I don't want our opponent to have a Wasteland for our Wasteland, weirdly. But we can always Wasteland away their Karakas at end step. I don't hate that as a plan. We're just going to take 3 here. So if we Wasteland their Karakas, then we can turn the Canonist into a Crucible. Sure. Activate this. Put this guy in. Oh. Is this a Skyclave Apparition? A Flicker Wisp. A little bit annoying. But such is life sometimes. So we'll put this on the stack. We'll not use the ability. We'll go to draw. An Esper Sentinel. How exciting is an Esper Sentinel? On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to say not very exciting at all. We don't want to send this in because we need to keep it back to 10 to a Crucible. Unfortunately, Oswald only comes back. He can only use his ability in, as well as being summoning sick, he can only use his ability as sorcery speed. So he's definitely not putting anything in this turn cycle. So we need to wait until we get the turn back and then try and get a Crucible and then play enough land so that we can grindstone our opponent. Another Karakas. Okay, so we're not going to get to Oswald. So we're just going to take 3 from this. We just needed some land to win this game, and now we don't have any. Put on stack. No, we'll not use the ability. Need to be a bit careful about clock already because these games can go pretty long against D&T. Sure. A Horizon Canopy. That is a land. We'll hold back the Esper Sentinel on blocks. And our plan now is to... We're basically constantly taxing this Karakas. Our opponent is getting to the point where they're going to put the Yorion in hand. So this basically just taps down the Karakas every turn. So if they have a land and then play out 3 mana for putting this in hand, then we might be alright if we can draw a land. Yeah, so I imagine they're going to attack us with the Flicker Wisp, then they're going to put Yorion in hand. Then they can blink the Yorion. They can put the Yorion into play with the Aether Vial, which is going to be a bit awkward. We're going to be in a weird stalemate. Loran of the Third Path. This is a huge problem for us. What are they going to hit? They're going to hit the Grindstone. That's pretty understandable. Let's try this guy. So, we're in trouble. Sure, Karakas, that little guy. If they're Karakasing that, they're not Karakasing their Loran of the Third Path, but they will get to blink the Loran very soon. So here's the land that we've needed many, many turns ago. So if we play out the Grindstone, we get hit by the Loran. We need to just draw another land, I think. That's what we need to do. We are in heaps of trouble. But we're not dead, so let's keep going. So we're going to get bashed up for 3 here. The Loran Spirit of the Labyrinth combo is pretty nice. If they do it in my turn, they get a card and I don't. So it's nice new tech. So they put the Yorion in hand. And they're just playing the Yorion out right now. Interesting. Let's see what they do with their triggers. So now they're going to come back. And we're going to see where they place their triggers. I imagine they reset or destroy our vial here. So they're going for the destroy the vial and Flicker Wisp the Loran. Can I beat this? It's going to be pretty tricky to do. I think we have to put the Fiddlebender in here. If we put the... yes, we need to put the Fiddlebender in here. We need to kill the Loran. Yep, so this get returned. Wait, if we'd have put in the Painter there, they bounce their Loran in response, don't they? Yeah, so we had to do it this way around. Alright, let's try a different approach. This has to get Kaldra because Batterskull just gets killed by the Loran here. So we are pretty close to being dead, I would say. I got 7 in the air. I'll have to do some blocking here. They don't have an artifact or enchantment to destroy, apart from our little guys, of course. Sure. Just our creatures. Just a removal spell on a guy. Yeah, so basically we bricked on lands, and that's going to cost us this game. Okay, it's got Wishdown Port. So if they attack with everything, we are forced to block. If they attack with just these, then we're dead next turn. So I guess either way we're dead next turn, so it makes sense to keep these around because you can then flicker this by bouncing it. Or bouncing the Yorion. I think we're pretty dead here. Let's see what we draw. Sure. We can see this game. Okay, so post board. What are we doing with our time? The Anointed Peacekeeper is pretty good at slowing down vials. I think we probably want to take out our own vial this time. The Soulguide Lantern here is not going to do anything. The March of Otherworldly Light here seems good. The Serra Paragon is also another thing that does stuff. The swords is going to be good. The Lion Sash is fine. We want to be able to Crucible. The Oswald plan is bad here. It's objectively bad because they've got 4 Karakas in their deck. So I don't think we want these. The Esper Sentinels are bad here as well. So we're looking at these go in and we get 1 more slot. So we probably do just run the Lion Sash just as a big guy, potentially. And this looks fine to me. Not great, but fine. We could run a single Oswald instead of the Sash. I don't hate that. Like the Canonist again is fine, but not great. Do you want a single Oswald? I don't think we do. We don't want to just play the bouncy Karakas game. Right, so we're on the play. What does this hand do? This hand can assemble one of my all-time favourite things to do in Magic, the Wasteland lock. We are a bit cold to Wasteland ourselves, though. So we keep this. And we play out an Eiganjo first, I think. Or do we play out the Ancient Den? I think I might prefer the Ancient Den getting Wastelanded here. Because they're going to have ways of destroying artifacts. So if they use a Wasteland on this, it's not going to get caught by a Kataki or something. They're going to play a Mother of Runes. If so, we will source the Plowshares and Mother of Runes. Good old-fashioned Magic. Alright, so now it's our turn. A Canonist. We are going to play our Stoneforge Mystic. This requires an immediate answer from our opponent. Yes, we'll use its ability. We'll go and get a Kaldra Compleat. So the worst thing our opponent can probably do to us this turn is source the Plowshares Wasteland, which I wish I hadn't said because that means they're probably going to do exactly that. Okay, there's the source of Plowshares. There's the Wasteland. You got to laugh, haven't you? If we can get up to 3 mana, these games tend to be a little bit longer, so we might be able to get up to 3 mana here. And so we can play out the... Oh, we kind of need the white source here if we want to make a play. I think we are just doing the Canonist play here. Then next turn we play out as a Saga Crucible, and then we start Wastelanding our opponent out of the game, maybe. Now they have to have some lands that we can hit with Wasteland, but they're probably going to have some... Oh, God. Sure. So it's our turn. And there's a Saga. I came to game, right? If at any point we get this Crucible in play and untap with it, we pretty much completely undo what our opponent has spent 2 turns doing. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. Now they can have a 3rd Wasteland. They do not have a 3rd Wasteland. We're back in the game now. I think it's more important to play Crucible than it is to... unless they have Lorana the 3rd Path is the only other problem we can have here. I think we play the... Oh, we can't play the Peacekeeper because it's white. Yeah, so we definitely need to play the Crucible out here. Otherwise, we're never going to have white mana again. Now, they can still Lorana the 3rd Path us. They can play Cathar Commando into our Canonist, but I imagine most of the decks have dropped it in favour of the Lorana the 3rd Path. Lorana the 3rd Path is going to be good against us here. There's not really much we can do about that. But we've played the Crucible out. Containment Priest. Sure, this card is not actually very good against us. It stops our Oswald, but we've had to get rid of the Oswald because it's no good in this matchup. Okay, Karakas. We've got rid of the Oswald, so that's nice to see. Lorana the 3rd Path. So this gets rid of our Crucible, which is a real pain in the ass. So bye-bye Crucible. And they can keep linking it with the Loran. So this is not great for us. A Painted Servant. We need to Wasteland our opponent here to get rid of this Karakas. Which means we can't make an Urza Saga construct. Which means that we are... I guess we could get Pithing Needle for Karakas is the other option here. If we get Pithing Needle for Karakas and make a construct, that's probably okay. So this gets Pithing Needle. And then this next one can get us a Grindstone if that's the thing we want. Do we want to attack with our Canonist? I think we do. If they have a Flicker Wisp, they're probably not blocking. If they don't have a Flicker Wisp, they might block. Oh my god, I've named the wrong thing. I've named a random 3rd Path instead of Karakas. Whoops. Oh my god. Recruiter of the Guard. Sure. Yeah, I made a horrible mistake there by naming the wrong thing. Kataki. Sure, so we need to draw our abundant removal spells. And relatively sharpish. Let's see what we draw. We can't make a construct token this turn. So what are we doing here? I think we're adding mana. I don't think we're going to be getting a Grindstone anytime soon. I think we just have to make a big creature. I think we're losing this game. We got double Wastelanded and had our Crucible destroyed, so I'm not really sure what we're supposed to do about that. We get to keep one thing next turn because they're going to play out the Kataki. We've just been absolutely done here. So our misplay with the Pithing Needle didn't matter, but it's still a misplay and annoying. Sure, we can't block these. We can only pay for one thing. So we'll not pay to prevent these. I guess we have to keep our 2/2. Not a great situation. This can probably just trade with the Kataki now. The Kataki's probably done its work. Okay, so we can Stoneforge Mystic and try and get over the finish line with a Kaldra. Kaldra can't be hit by Loran, so this is fine. Not fine, but Richdown Port Wastelandy type thing would really bury us deep. A Flicker Wisp. Okay. So what is this going to flicker? Ethersworn Canonist. Very peculiar choice. Surely you just flicker your own recruiter there. Mother of Runes. Oh, sorry, they have the Containment Priest, don't they? Of course they do. That's why they're flickering it. Apologies. Okay, so we have a land. And I think we need to save our life here, so we're going to play this guy out. And we're going to go and get ourselves the Batterskull, because we already have the Kaldra in hand. And then we're going to pass the turn. And we're going to hope to draw into our... Well, we can Kaldra and hope that does something, really. They can bounce their Loran. So, okay, the Solitude, the hardcast Solitude. I don't think I'm beating my opponent's hand in a million years, to be honest. Yeah, I feel a bit bad that we lost the first game because we just bricked on land for a couple of turns. This game has just been an absolutely thorough smashing. We can go on our own terms, I guess. There we go. So we got 3-2 with the deck, which isn't great. We did beat two of our good matchups, so two of our bad matchups in the form of Doomsday and Reanimator. We lost to the Stompy deck. I think we should have mulliganed, looking back. We should have mulliganed a bit more aggressively to try and find a Stoneforge. I think the Mother of Runes Stoneforge Batterskull plan is good against the Stompy decks and is going to be able to outrace it a decent amount of the time. So we probably should have been more aggressive with our mulligans. Against the Death and Taxes player, we bricked on land, which was annoying, but happens sometimes. So that's the fate of the cards. We got Wasteland a little bit, and they sort of came for us, and that's annoying. If our second Horizon Canopy was maybe a Plains instead, that might have been better. So we'll probably try it with a Plains next time. And the last game against Death and Taxes was brutal. I don't know what sort of hand we could have to necessarily beat what our opponent was doing, but they kind of had everything going for them. So, yeah. Again, we're a fair deck, more or less, with an unfair win condition built into it. So, if our opponent's going to be doing a very powerful fair game like that, it's going to be a little bit hard for us to struggle, to struggle through. But that's kind of the nature of Magic sometimes. Some hands just line up really awkwardly and there's not much you can do about it. But yeah, I'll probably have a rewatch of my Stompy game and think about my mulligans and some of my decisions more. Like the turn I made my Crucible, maybe I should have been just Swords to Plowsharesing that turn and then untap into Batterskull. That probably is better. I think we'd probably still lose that game most of the time, but I think that would be a better line. So it was a good learning experience. As for the deck in general, I wanted to see I actively wanted to see the Batterskull. So I think the Batterskull is good. The land instead of a Mox felt fine. I didn't have any problems with that. It was nice to have some more lands. Kind of just wish it was more plains, really. So I probably will -1 Canopy +1 plains, which means that's one less Horizon Canopy for me to buy and foil for my paper version. The extra Swords to Plowshares in the main decks seemed alright. Possibly have more, just because that's the way the meta is right now. It's just loads of creature decks, really. The Fiddlebender with the reduced artifact count is interesting. I think it's still fine, but maybe we could trim one Fiddlebender for one Lion Sash and then free up another sideboard slot. So we could have another removal spell like a Path to Exile, just so we've sort of overloading on that a little bit, but I think that's probably fine. I didn't miss having loads of Aether Vials. I boarded it out quite a lot, so I think that was fine too. Anything else to mention about the deck? No, I think I should be more aggressive mulliganing to Stoneforge in the initiative games. Like, you can't have an okay hand, you need to have the right hand, so I should probably be a bit more aggressive with my mulligans there. I think having additional source of Plowshares might help. There's also the option of trimming on a Grindstone for a plow, because we have 8 ways of shooting for it as well, so we effectively have 10 copies of Grindstone on a deck if we have 2, and I know a lot of the red painted decks only run 2 Grindstone now. But I do quite like having the third one, because we're not hyper tuning for it with things like Goblin Engineer and such like. It's quite nice just to have more to draw into, and sometimes you look at your hand and go, oh, I just get to win. Another thing I was thinking about is also maybe we want soul, like I've got some lists of this to try with soul lands, so we can play higher up the curve, but also make it easier to have the mana to activate this, because we lost a game because we didn't have the mana. If we had a soul land in our deck, maybe we'd be able to crank out a little bit quicker, and also gives us a faster clock against other combo decks. So I like the direction this is going. I'm going to try something quite a lot different with the soul lands to see how that feels, and then I can go back to this after I do it. So that deck's probably not even going to be a Grindstoneforge deck. I think it's going to be quite a ways away, but we'll see how that looks. A few things about sideboard. The Grafdigger's Cage is great. It came in handy against the Elf deck, but I think this matchup is probably fine for us against the Elves. Like, if they don't super jam us up early, I think we've got the pieces to take out the important bits of their combo and then stifle them up with a Grafdigger's Cage so they can't go over the top. I like to Purify the Graves, to be honest. Not just because it's got some really cool artwork, but I really like the colour scheme on this. But I think the Purify the Grave, the logic I had for why I ran it made sense. And in that game against Reanimator, if that was my only graveyard hate in hand, it would have been fine. And I would have been able to survive through a Thoughtseize without any issue. So I think that was good. The Serra Paragon, we didn't really get to do anything with. Again, there's so little control, especially in MTGO leagues right now, that maybe even having cards like this just for control is a bit pointless. But again, in the Death and Taxes matchup, this can let you accrue lots of advantage. It's like a second Crucible, effectively. So you can win the Wasteland Wars, and you can also just keep drawing cards with your canopies and keep recycling as sagas and rebuilding. And also you can play both halves of your combo from the graveyard. It has a little bit of life to it. So I think the Serra Paragon is good. It just hasn't quite had the opportunity to shine. But if I'm playing Soul Lands, the Serra Paragon is going to be better because it's going to be cheaper to cast. All right, I think I've spoke about the deck enough. I'd just like to say that I've been banging on about Anointed Peacekeeper for ages. Ever since it was printed, I bought a load in foil because I thought it was really good, and it's nice to see everyone else is finally catching up. Obviously, when you're playing it on like turn 1 or 2, it's better. But even so, I still think it's a solid card that has a lot of utility. Okay, I think we're done for today. So if you've enjoyed this video and you're still here, which you must be if you're hearing me speak, so why not subscribe to my channel? It doesn't cost you anything and it really helps me out. I'm trying to get monetized, so I need as many subscribers as possible. If you already subscribed, likes and comments bump up the algorithm and kind of help more people find it. And if you really want to help me help other people find it, then send them links to my stuff. You say, oh, here's this cool video I was watching. I really like the deck. If you did, obviously. If you hate the deck, then maybe don't. Try and find one of my videos you do like. But then send that to some friends and be like, yeah, come on, subscribe to this guy. Help him get monetized. All right. I think we are done for today. So thank you very much for watching and enjoying this new experiment with version 2.0 with me. All right. Goodbye.